Welcome to Industry Insights with Route Consultant, your front row seat to the fast-moving world of logistics and beyond. Each week, we bring you game-changing insights, real-world strategies, and fresh perspectives to fuel smarter investments and build stronger businesses. Join us as we sit down with expert guests to explore emerging trends and pressing topics across a wide range of industries. This is Industry Insights. Hey everyone, welcome to Industry Insights. This is a special episode that was actually recorded live at the Route Consultant Expo in 2026. We're releasing this over time so that if you weren't at the expo, or if you missed the session, or if you're just catching up, these are all coming out over the course of the year so that you can go back and watch this content and make sure that you see everything that we went over at the expo. Today you're going to hear from Alex Frum about how to protect your bottom line with safety and compliance.
Good morning, everybody. It's still officially morning, so I hope you guys are not all bummed out from the Miami win as I am. You know, I'm not much of a Miami fan, but I thought Ole Miss got robbed last night. So I don't know how everyone else feels, but I'm going to talk about safety and compliance this morning. As I said yesterday a number of different times, safety is the biggest way, or the number one way that you can lose your business in the FedEx world. So it's really important that you focus on safety. It's much more important than you focus on safety and then you're focusing on service and availability. As I believe there's 4 pillars to being a successful contractor, and we'll talk about them again, but safety and your finances are the 2 main pillars that support your business and make you successful. So as before, Route Consultant is not endorsed by, is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and it has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Okay, so as I mentioned yesterday, there's 4 pillars to being a successful contractor: safety, service, availability, and financials. Okay, safety and financials are the 2 main pillars that you need to focus on to be successful here. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about safety. It's near and dear to my heart. If you want to grow organically within the FedEx space, you need to be tier 4, or you need to be at least a silver contractor. And we're going to go over what the difference is between bronze, silver, and gold. And we're going to talk about the safety tiers. So what is SRI? This is your safety results indicator. Now we're getting into the weeds of being a FedEx contractor. For everybody who's new here, there's a couple terms that we're going to talk about: your safety results summary and your safety results indicator. The safety results indicator is a number that highlights your trend over a rolling 36-month period that captures everything that FedEx considers a safety event. So your accidents, your CSA violations, your pull-offs, your disconnects, any compliance issues that you have on a CSA inspection, all that gets wrapped up into your SRI. Your SRI is updated on a monthly basis. You still don't have access to it through Spotlight, but Spotlight reflects and updates with your SRI number on the 15th of every month. If it falls on a weekend, then it's the following Monday. I request my SRI or SRS. It's a PDF form that comes to you from FedEx. I request it on the 18th of every month from my terminal manager, my senior line haul manager. If you operate in a station, this is really important. If you operate in a station, that P&D manager that runs that station is going to have no idea what you're talking about, because line haul and P&D are that different. He's just going to give you your metal score. He might just give you a number. There is a 6-page PDF that actually details all the components of your safety results summary, your safety results indicator. And to get that, you need to go to the line haul manager that owns the territory that station is part of. Okay, so if you happen to be in Gulfport, Mississippi, that's a station, then you need to go to Olive Branch, which is the parent hub of that station. If you operate in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is just down the road from the Nashville terminal, then you need to go to the Nashville line haul manager to get your safety results information. This is right off of what comes off of your safety results indicator. You can find this information in MGB if you do a frequently asked questions. If you put into the search menu My Ground Biz, so there's two websites for FedEx contractors. There's MGB and MGBA. MGBA is where we get your communication, where you get your settlement statements. That's where you sign your SIG. That's the internal document or website that you go to for all the FedEx information. And then MGB, which is My Ground Biz, is where you get the news, where they have a searchable feature to get a lot of documentation. There is a frequently asked questions PDF. It's about 3 pages long that talks about the components of this. So this comes directly from that document. Okay, these are what all the points are worth. If you have a preventable accident, if it's non-DOT recordable, that's 45. If it's DOT recordable, it's 68 points. What is the difference between a DOT recordable accident and a preventable accident? A DOT recordable accident means that the DOT was on site at that accident, and the DOT is required to come to any highway accident when there is a death or fatality, an injury that requires medical support, so an EMS or an ambulance, or a truck has to be towed off the highway. That's what makes it a DOT recordable event. Otherwise, it's just a traffic accident and the DOT doesn't come out. You just get, highway patrol. Pull-offs, disconnects. A pull-off is when you pull off from the dock doors with your trailer door still open, and a lot of times there's still a package handler inside the trailer. Disconnect is when you're set. We pull doubles 9 times out of 10 in the FedEx world. So when you have a disconnect between either the lead trailer and the back of the tractor, or you have a disconnect between the front trailer and the rear trailer. So you haven't done the work to make sure that your dolly is hooked up correctly to the lead trailer, or the jaws haven't closed on that back trailer. It's really dangerous. You sometimes see it on the news of a trailer rolling down the highway all by itself at about 60 miles an hour. It's really scary when it happens. General liabilities, those are like you hit a highway barrier, you hit a fence. Those are, you did a road rut somewhere. They're much more common in the P&D world. It's very rare to have them on the line haul side, but they do occur. VET or KI failures, those are the key indicators, and we'll talk a little bit more about them, but like if you fail a speeding, failure to wear seatbelts, following distance, using a handheld device, those are your VET or KI failures. And then your CSA basic class levels. CSA refers to your highway inspections. So when you go through a weigh station or when you're pulled over by a DOT officer, you can get a CSA violation. It's not a ticket. That's a totally different thing. This is you failed an inspection of some sort. So you have a number of different ones. So you can have unsafe or vehicle maintenance. So if a DOT officer does an inspection of your vehicle and you have an unlatched fire extinguisher, that's a vehicle maintenance fault. If you have low tire pressure, that's a vehicle maintenance fault. If you have bald tires, if you have chafing hoses, those are all vehicle maintenance issues. By extension, if you have a pissed off DOT officer, he will find something wrong with your truck and give you a CSA violation for maintenance. There's generally something always wrong with a truck. We have airlines, they hang when you connect them to the lead trailer. There is a CSA violation for those airlines, which have to have a lot of slack in them, for rubbing along the catwalk of your tractor. That is a CSA violation. There's nothing you can do about it. So if a DOT officer wants to give you a violation for your airlines touching the catwalk, he can give you a CSA violation for them. So it's really very subjective, and it's up to that DOT officer. Unsafe driving means anything from speeding to operating in the left lane. Most states require tractor trailers to only operate in the right 2 lanes or right lane of a highway. So if you're caught driving in the left lane, you can be unsafe driving. If you are running on the white line of the shoulder, that can be considered unsafe driving. So, there's a higher expectation for our commercial drivers. They are expected to be professionals and experts in driving a tractor. So they are expected to be able to maintain that vehicle in the center of your lane and not wandering between, the lane markers. Driver fitness or HOS violations. Driver fitness is everything from having an expired medical certificate to not wearing your glasses while you're driving, not having your hearing aids in, or having, like I said, expired medical fitness. HOS violations, those come back to hours of service. So if you are driving under a load in personal conveyance, that's an HOS violation. If you haven't taken your 30-minute rest break and you're driving beyond the 8 hours, that's an hours of service violation. If you're driving over 70 hours in any 8-day period, that's an hours of service violation. Drugs and alcohol, that's, kind of self-explanatory. If your driver is caught driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence, those are drug and alcohol. Non-CSA violations, they never happen, so don't worry about it. And then if you get a clean inspection, if you get pulled over by a DOT officer, you get a 7-point credit. How do CSA inspections impact your SRI score? It's pretty self-explanatory, but roadside inspections with multiple violations receive the SRI points for the highest CSA basis score. So if you get in an accident, more than likely what's going to happen is you're going to get both a CSA violation and an accident, okay? So you could either get unsafe driving, which is 45 points, or you could get the preventable accident. Now, if it's DOT recordable, what they're going to do is eventually it's going to switch from that 45 points to that 68 points. Clean inspection credits, you get 7 points every single time you get a clean inspection. They stay on your books for 12 months, as long as you have CSA violations to offset that. If you have no CSA violations and you have a ton of clean inspections, it doesn't do you any good. If you have a CSA violation on FedEx equipment, that generally is not your responsibility unless it's something that you should have caught, okay? So when we do our pre- and post-trip inspections, our requirement is to check to make sure that the marker lights work on that trailer, that the brakes are working on that trailer, and that the airlines, you're not required to actually go under the trailer and look at it. You do need to make sure that the vehicle, you need to do a walk around inspection of that trailer, make sure the doors are secured, make sure that you have mud flaps on it, that all your marker lights, there's nothing hanging on it. So anything else, like if you have a faulty brake chamber on a trailer, that is not your responsibility. You're not expected to catch that. That's something that's FedEx's responsibility. A vet or KI failure results in an assessment of 23 points to a contractor score. A contractor can only be assessed 23 points for a vet or KI failure each month, regardless of the number of KI failures. The last point is no longer relevant since we've all transitioned over. So what to know about vet or KI failures? The big thing is that as we're transitioning from Omnitrax over to Motive or from PeopleNet to Motive, FedEx recently announced that by August 31st of 2026, all contractors have to be using Motive for ELDs, which also Motive is making a very big push to have their cameras turned on in all the trucks. I use Lytx, so I'm not having this issue, but a lot of contractors who are making the switch from Lytx over to Motive or making the switch from Ground Cloud over to Motive are having issues with reporting. The data is not being communicated effectively over to FedEx, which is resulting in KI failures because FedEx says, oh, you're not doing any of the things that you're supposed to be doing, or you're not communicating with us, and that's your responsibility to figure out. So if you make the transition from Lytx or from Ground Cloud or from Smart Witness over to Motive cameras, make sure that FedEx is aware that you've made that switch, and so they are acknowledged in writing that they are aware that you've made the switch for your cameras, and then make sure that Motive is transmitting that data over. FedEx is going to blame you if that data is not being communicated to FedEx, and you're going to be held responsible, even if you have nothing to do with it. Even if it's a software communication issue between FedEx and Motive, FedEx is going to blame you. So make sure you stay on top of this. These are the Vetter KRs, as I mentioned before. Speeding, distractions, unbelted, following distance, and camera obstruction. Camera obstruction is if your drivers get caught taping or covering over the cameras, either the forward-facing camera or the cab-facing camera. They cannot put a hat on it. If they have a visor that blocks it, like one of my practices is I remove all the sun visors from my tractors. Why? Because too many of my drivers were leaving them down even at night, which is a KI failure. So I just pulled them all off. That way my drivers don't have to remember to put up their sun visor, and I don't have to worry about KI failures for camera obstruction. Speeding, all our tractors are required to drive at 65 miles per hour. It's in the contract. There are plenty of FedEx contractors out there who leave their tractors ungoverned. It's a risk. You could get in trouble with FedEx. You could have to provide a letter of assurance that shows in detail that all your tractors drive at 65 miles per hour. It's a pain in the butt. You actually have to pull computer data from a dealer to show them that all your tractors are set up there. Just get them governed at 65. You know, having your driver be able to drive at 67 miles per hour, that 2 mile per hour difference doesn't mean anything. It might be 10 minutes on a 600-mile run. It's not worth it.
Hey guys, we just wanted to pause for a moment to invite you to our free events that are happening throughout the year. Whether you're just getting started in the logistics industry or you're looking to optimize your current operation, Route Consultant has events that are designed specifically for you. So head on over to routeconsultant.com/events or check out our show notes to register for free today. Also, while you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Industry Insights with Route Consultant podcast so that you don't miss out on the stories, the advice, and the updates that are happening throughout the industry. We appreciate you being here and hope to meet you in person soon. Now let's get back to the episode.
If your driver gets busted going 65 and a 55 or 45 and a 25, you know, that's where you get that KI failure. Unbelted, all our drivers, either in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat, are required to have a seatbelt on when they're operating a vehicle. When the vehicle is under movement, everybody, even the passenger, needs to have a seatbelt on. Actually, regarding passengers, the only people allowed to be in a FedEx truck are FedEx authorized personnel, so they have to have a FedEx ID. So you as an AO can drive in the passenger seat. Your wife, if she doesn't have a FedEx ID, cannot be in the passenger seat. Okay? That is a no-no with FedEx. You can lose your contract for failing to follow the proper rules and procedures of the contract if you get caught too many times having unauthorized personnel. You know, just to caveat once, I caught one of my drivers taking his kids around in the tractor with him because he didn't have daycare for his kids one day. That driver's no longer with me because I caught him doing it more than once. Following distance, this is actually part of the DOT and the FMCSA. Tractors are supposed to maintain over 3 seconds distance between the vehicle in front of them. Generally, it's 3 football lengths when you're driving at 65 miles an hour. Here's your KI table, okay? It's a little complicated, and we'll talk about how the calculation is done, but it looks at the number of incidences that you had a KI failure divided by the number of times your tractor is dispatched. So if you have 23 tractors and they're dispatched 30 times a year or 30 times a month, then that math equates out to 690 instances that you can have. That's the divisor of this calculation. And then the number of incidences is the numerator. So as I mentioned before, so attainment value is equal to the total number of unsafe operator actions in the month for each KI divided by the average number of Vetter equipped vehicles used that month. Oh, sorry, not the dispatch, it's just the Vetter number of vehicles equipped. So if I have 30 vehicles and I have, let me do the math simple. If I have 10 vehicles and I have 15 incidences, then my value is 1.5. Okay? Now, if I grow my business between the beginning of the month and the end of the month, and I go from 10 vehicles to, say, 15 vehicles, then they take the average of the number of vehicles dispatched during the month, and that becomes your new value. Does everybody understand how this calculation is made? Okay, so this is how the table is calculated. Again, this is on MGB if you need to find it, but go ahead and take pictures. So the period at the top is June 22nd to May 23rd. Okay, you had 2 total accidents, that's 45, so 45 times 2 is 90. You had 1 pull-off, is worth 40 points. You had 2 KI failures, so that's 26 points. You then had an unsafe driving event during that 12-month period worth 45 points. Your total miles is 2.6 million miles. So what they do is they add all those numbers up. So 90 plus 40 plus 46 equals 176, plus the 45 minus the 7 for the clean inspection, that's 38. So you have a total of 214. That's then divided by the number of miles you've driven, and then multiply by 100,000 to make it into a number that you can actually look at. And that gives you a SRI number of 8.23. This SRI number then gives you your tier ranking. Everybody cool with this table here? Here are the tier levels, okay? The tiers are based off of the number of miles you drive. Okay, this table is, we do not know what the criteria is for each, but what it is that FedEx looks at all the miles driven by all the contractors in any given 1 month period, and then takes that number and divides it into 4 quartiles. So we kind of have conjecture that an extra large carrier does somewhere between 1.5 to 2 million miles a year. That's an extra large carrier. There are plenty of carriers that have a lot of trucks that do very few miles. You're thinking about spot business. The average spot length is only 19 miles. So you could have you could be a contractor with a lot of trucks and be considered a smaller medium carrier. But that SRI score, remember it was 8.23. We're assuming that he did 2.6 million miles. We're assuming that he's extra large. So he was probably considered a tier 4 contractor. Or actually, no matter what the size he is, he's tier 4, right? Because he had a safety score, an SRI of 8.23. That's the gold standard. That's where you want to be. If you are tier 4 safety, and then if you're good on availability and good on service, you're going to be a gold contractor. Otherwise, you're going to be silver. Actually, one point, let me go back. The safety score is really important. If you are tier 2, you're going to be asked to provide a letter of assurance or a curative letter. FedEx uses both ones interchangeably. You have 40, FedEx is going to come to you, they'll send you an email or they'll give you a call and say, hey, you're tier 2 safety, we need you to provide a letter of assurance that you are doing everything in your capabilities to improve your safety score. If you're tier 1, you're more than likely, you're going to have a period to try to get to fix yourself, but FedEx is not going to give you any wiggle room on it. And if you have another incident, a CSA violation or an accident, FedEx will initiate terms to terminate your contract. If you're tier 2, they're going to communicate with you that we need a letter of assurance or a letter to cure, and then you have 45 days to respond in writing on your own company letterhead of what are the steps that you're taking to fix your training. Back in during COVID, 2021, I was a tier 2 contractor. I had a bad rash of CSA violations, and I had to provide them with a detailed letter about what I was going to do to fix the issues within my company. What was I going to do to make sure that all my drivers were doing their pre-trip inspections? What was I going to do to make sure that I was improving my maintenance, which was causing me to have those CSA violations? It was a 3-page document. I sent it back up to them. I signed it. During that period, I worked very hard. It takes about 12 months to improve your safety score. So during that 12-month period, I was at risk of dipping down into tier 1. If I had taken another accident, if I had had another CSA violation without one rolling off, I would have dipped down into tier 1 safety. I went 12 months. I fixed myself. I immediately, like I said, I had a really bad rash of incidences in 1 month. And during that period, I went from tier 2 to tier 4 because they all rolled off during a 12-month period. Okay, so to metals. Metals is an acronym. It was probably come up with some guy who went to an MBA school in Pennsylvania. It means model excellence driven by analytics of line haul service providers. I believe there is a similar acronym for P&D that means something totally different, but they use metals as well. What are the results included? So 45% is safety, 40% is availability, service is 15%. This is what goes into your metal score. There is talk about making safety actually even more important as a component about your metal score, but at the moment, these are the components and the weightings for your metal score. The incentives for achieving gold, one, you get recognized by FedEx for being gold. You get invited to a ceremony in Pittsburgh where FedEx wines and dines you for a couple nights. I believe they actually pay for your flight and your hotel room, and you get to hang out with other gold contractors. It also helps you out with bidding. And those are the only two. Oh, and then you get recognized in Orlando. So those are the two, that's the achievement about being gold. It's really hard to be gold. Being silver, you still get to grow. So I wouldn't really stress out about the fact if you're gold or not gold. Okay, you're bronze. What should I do? Okay, you're going to get a score. You're going to get a recognition on Spotlight that you're bronze. And it's going to tell you certain areas to focus on. But if you're involved in your business and you understand what's going on, you're going to know what's causing you to be bronze. Is it your service? Is it your availability? Is it your safety? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be safety because that's the biggest driver and the area that can have the biggest issues with you. If it's availability, it's generally it's generally recruiting. If it's service, it's generally about maintenance. So those are 2 easy areas to fix. If it's safety, you have a culture issue that you need to work on. Okay, that's why yesterday I talked so much about establishing a culture that focuses on safety. One, it gives you peace of mind. You do not want to have to be that guy that has to call a wife, a mother, a sister, and tell them that their loved one has passed away on the road. Okay? It is heart-wrenching. You know, knock on wood, I've never had a fatality with a driver on the road. I had a heart attack in the yard once, and it was probably the hardest conversation I've ever had is calling, my driver's wife to let him know that her husband had passed away because he had a heart attack on the yard facility. It is a heart-wrenching conversation. You do not want to have that one. So fixing your culture is really, really important. You want to prioritize it. How do you fix your culture? Okay? It all begs down to processes and procedures. The one thing I learned from my time in the Army is that processes and procedures saves lives. Okay? Having a strong processes and procedures in place takes away the decision matrix for your drivers. They don't have to think about what they're doing. They just follow the processes and procedures. You give them a checklist to follow. This is what you do when you do your pre-trip inspection. This is what you do when you dispatch. This is how you operate on the road. This is what you do if you get into the event of an accident. This is how you do a dock pull. This is how you break down sets. I have processes and procedures for every single thing that one of my drivers do. We instruct our drivers on how to hold the dolly. Why do we do that? To make sure that they don't have an accident when they're hooking up the dolly. The dolly weighs about 300 pounds. It really hurts when you catch your hand in the eyelet of the dolly. You're usually breaking a thumb, you're breaking a hand, you're losing a finger. So having processes and procedures in place and being very specific to the point of I clarify very carefully where I want the hands placed, okay? The right hand always goes on the handle. The left hand always goes on the handle. I instruct my drivers to have an overhand grip with the right hand and underhand grip with the left hand. It's that detailed. I tell my drivers always use their fifth wheel puller. I'm very, very clear about the instructions and the guidance that I give to make sure that we don't have accidents. Okay, each accident is a black mark against your reputation within FedEx. It impacts your safety score. So having those processes and procedures in place is how you alleviate and take away the risk of having a bad safety score. Remedial training. I catch a driver or my managers catch a driver doing something wrong. We go through remedial training. It is not like, hey, you really should do a pre-trip inspection. No, my managers will then take that 30-year vet and say, okay, we're going to do pre-trip training. This is what we expect from you. You come in, you turn on the vehicle or you don't turn on the vehicle. At different points in time, you need to have the vehicle on or off to do your pre-trip inspection. You need to have your vehicle on to check the lights, to make sure that the airbags are inflating, to make sure that there's air in the air governor. You need to have your vehicle off to check the oil, to check your reservoir levels, to check your coolant. So there are different components. When you're doing your pre-trip inspection, I require all my drivers to log into their ELD device to make sure we remain in compliance on hours of service rules. So we go through all that. So with the remedial training, we do it hands-on, one-on-one. One of my managers who's been trained in our safety procedures and our maintenance procedures, going through it with that driver. Coaching. We catch them having a failure. They got caught using a handheld device while operating a commercial motor vehicle. They got caught not driving. That's where we coach. Again, our coaching is one-on-one. We have the driver watch the video on a tablet to see what he was doing wrong, and then we coach him about it. And we provide additional training. I use Safety Forward. The nice thing about Safety Forward is they have about a menu of about 40 or 50 different training videos, and I assign them remedial training as well as getting that one-on-one coaching from my manager. Safety training. So we do two parts for our safety training. My managers give a weekly safety message, and then I give a weekly safety message. And then, so that there's the message that we give to each of our drivers. And then on top of that, I require my managers to drive with every single driver once every 6 months. So they're in the passenger seat observing how that driver is driving. A lot of times that driver is driving better during that period, but we're still checking to make sure that he's doing everything that we want him to do when he's on the road. The other thing is we encourage our drivers to compete in the truck driving championships every year. Not only is it a $10,000 prize if they happen to win the truck driving championships, but in order to compete in the truck driving championships that can't have had any accidents or CSA violations in the past year, they get to go expenses paid by FedEx to a location to compete in the truck driving championships. The hotel room is paid, and they're given per diem, and they get paid because FedEx reimburses me for the loss of their miles. So I pay them to go compete in this thing. A lot of times they're at a casino or at a racetrack. It's a fun time. FedEx comes out and really cheers the drivers on. And part of them going through the truck driving championships, they have to be tested on their DOT knowledge of being a commercial motor vehicle operator. They have to pass a pre-trip inspection, and they have to drive an obstacle course. All things that are reinforcing what we want our drivers to do. So to compete in it, you have to be a good driver, and then it reinforces. And then you know what happens is they come back and say, you know what, Alex sent me to Tupelo, Mississippi, and I got to hang out at the casino down there. It was awesome. I got free food and a free hotel room. And guess what all my other drivers want to do? They all want to go to Tupelo, Mississippi for the truck driving championships. It's incentive. Encourage your drivers to compete in the truck driving championship. I went from having 3 drivers my first year in 2020 to now I send about 30 of my 49 drivers every year to the truck driving championship. FedEx doesn't mind. They encourage it. They want you to have as many drivers as possible there. And they want FedEx to win because every single time one of our drivers wins the state competition or the regional competition or the national competition, we get to have that driver gets marketed. It's free advertising for FedEx. A couple years ago, we had a number of drivers win the truck driving championship nationally, and they got recognized by President Trump. He had them drive the big rigs out onto actually, I don't think it was onto the White House lawn, but they drove into the circle in front of the White House. And FedEx was really proud of it, and they actually they had a FedEx truck and a FedEx and Blaze trailer, so it was great marketing. If you are really still struggling with safety, there are a couple safety providers out there. My ground force is partnered with Synergy Solutions. They are a third-party safety provider. There's also Smith Systems and Line Haul Central. They will come in, do an audit of your safety program, and do the coaching for you until you can get your skis back, or your feet back up on your skis. So if you're really still struggling or need more assistance with safety, talk to those providers. Again, they are Synergy Solutions, which is partnered with my ground force, Smith Systems, or Line Haul Central. Those are the three big ones. They're all great guys. They all understand safety within the FedEx community. A lot of them have FedEx experience, and they will be able to provide you with a great safety training, safety plan, how to implement it, and how to continue it. And then they will give you, they'll take the training wheels off and let you run on your own. Any questions? Go ahead, Joel.
When you mentioned that you send all the drivers down there to that competition, that sounds pretty awesome. My immediate question was, like, when you send that many drivers, how do you schedule that with the runs?
So that's the great thing about it. FedEx doesn't give you declines when your drivers are at the truck driving championship. So FedEx wants them to go, doesn't give you any declines, and then pays you for the miles that you missed. So every single driver that I send to a truck driving championship, they pay me $800 for. Sometimes in some states I hear it's up to $1,000 they'll pay you. It all depends on what state you operate in and what your cost of living. So I tell my drivers, I'm going to pay you to go have a great weekend in a casino. Oh, and you're going to get free food and some alcohol, and your stay is free. It's like it's a free vacation. It's a free long weekend at a great location, except when they schedule it at a freight yard. So when it's at the Speedway, when it's at the casino, my drivers love it. When it's at a freight facility, it sucks. But don't tell your drivers that.
What does FedEx do proactively? Do they audit contractors to see if they have a safety plan in place, or do they have a consistent safety plan that can be used across the contractors? And can you speak about, or is this something that's done after the fact with the indemnification issues in the contract?
So FedEx has a safety information guide to operate on FedEx facilities that discusses what you're supposed to do in the yard, but you're an independent contractor. If FedEx dictated your safety plan to you, you'd be a franchise, or you could even argue that you're an employee of FedEx. So the safety, they tell you what the punishment is. They don't care how you achieve the results that they want. It's just it's on you. So it's up to you to come up with an effective safety plan. As for the audit, there is no audit. It's just your monthly safety score that you get. So FedEx doesn't care if you actually have a safety plan in writing. They don't care what you communicate to your drivers. That's all on you as a business owner. Remember, we're all independent contractors. It's on us to come up with an effective safety plan. In my 7 years, I've relied on my managers who are experts. I don't hold a CDL. I'm aware about how to run a good safety program from my years in the Army, but being an Army safety officer or being, understanding preventative maintenance in the Army is a little bit different from being in the trucking world. So I rely heavily on reading the DOT, reading the FMCSA website, accessing the American Trucking Association guide to determining accident preventability, and relying on my managers who are all extremely experienced CDL drivers. All my managers have over 20 years of experience operating commercial motor vehicles. A couple of them were owner-operators. So I rely heavily on them of coming up with solutions. I delegate a lot. I'll say, hey, come up with a way to coach my drivers. Come up with a way we want to safely handle the dolly. They came back with it. We did a video. We have a YouTube video about it that's on our internal website that we share with our drivers. So those are the kind of things that you need to come up with. Whatever works for your company, there are a lot of different solutions, but it's on you as an independent contractor to come up with that solution to achieve the metrics and the goals that FedEx sets for us. Yes, sir.
This is AJ from Houston. If you are getting into the space first time, where do you start? If you're buying a business that has a bad safety score, let's say, is it a clean slate right now? Do you start at zero, gold?
Yeah, so when you buy a business, you start at zero. Okay, so if you buy a bad business with a bad safety score, I mean, it's going to be incumbent on you of setting a new safety culture and putting processes and procedures in place. As I've said, one of the number one ways you can lose your contract is having a bad safety score. So a lot of the sales that we see are driven by contractors who haven't figured out safety or had a bad run of safety. You can fix yourself. My friend Nick here had a number of bad CSA violations. He runs a very clean record. I don't know if you've had an accident in the last year. Okay. But Nick happens to operate, his yard is 5 miles away from a DOT weigh station. So every single one of his drivers to get on the highway has to go through the scales. So every day he dispatches 23 trucks, and every single one of those trucks goes through the scales. Now, one of the ways you can alleviate that is get something called a PrePass or a DriveWise tab. It goes up into your windshield and will give you a green or a red light. So when a DOT weigh station is open, you have to go into the DOT weigh station unless you have a green indicator on that light. If you don't happen to have a PrePass or a DriveWise, transponder, you don't know if you can bypass the weigh station or not, so you have to automatically go in and get inspected. By having the PrePass or the DriveWise transponder, it will tell you if you need to go in for an inspection or not, and so it reduces the number of incidences or the number of chances that you can go in for a CSA inspection. And as I mentioned before, DOT officers can be in a good mood or they can be in a bad mood. If they're having a bad day, you're coming out of there with a bad CSA score. You're going to get a CSI violation. If you have a really nice DOT officer, you're going to walk away with just doing a level 1 inspection, which is him just saying, "Hi, how are you doing, Eric? Can you show me your license and registration?" If you have a bad one, he's going to ask you for you to hand him your ELD, and then he's going to do a vehicle inspection of your equipment. So I highly recommend paying whatever the fee it is for DriveWise and PrePass on a monthly basis, because it reduces the number of times that you can go in for a CSN inspection when you approach a weigh station. But going back to your point, so your score is wiped clean, okay? And then you start matriculating. The problem with it having a score wiped clean is it also means that you have no miles for your denominator. So you get one accident, driven by, and you've only been driving 45,000 miles for that month. You've driven only 10,000 miles for that month. So you have 45 divided by 10,000, multiplied by 100,000. You all of a sudden have a safety score. Am I on the wrong slide? Sorry. There. You're only going to be tier 2 or maybe even tier 1. Okay? As you accumulate more miles, your denominator expands, and the impact of that one accident or that one CSA violation decreases dramatically. But when you start off with a clean slate, try really hard for the first 6 months not to have an incident, because automatically you're going to get put into tier 2. That one incident, because you have no miles as your denominator, is going to drive your safety score right away. Now, one caveat. So we talked about safety score and your metal score being the main driver for the bidding process when you want to convert your unassigned runs into dedicated runs. As a new contractor, you cannot participate in the bidding process for 6 months. So they give you 6 months to clean yourself up and get ready and learn the business. At the same time, you cannot do any more growth within 6 months. You can't come in as a brand new contractor and be like, "Hey, I just took over 10 runs and I'm going to go take another 10 runs next month in Reno." They won't let you grow from Las Vegas to Reno. You have 6 months where FedEx is going to be watching you, and they want you to learn how to run the business before they'll even allow you to do an acquisition or a growth or organic growth. What?
That's only for the second acquisition,
Yes,
not for
that's
the
only
third or growth.
no, it's only for the first time. As a brand new contractor, they're going to give you 6 months to figure yourself out. And then you can start growing more aggressively if you want to. But trust me, you really want to take it slow. Don't get over your skis. The biggest thing you can do is try to get too aggressive and grow too quickly. And then you have this unwieldy, large operation that you don't really know what's going on. Now, you can buy a business in multiple markets. So as your first acquisition, you can buy a business with operations in Lenexa and in KCMO in Dallas. So you could be in multiple locations from the start. You could buy multiple stations, but they're not going to let you grow again after your initial acquisition for 6 months. Does that make sense? And if you want to talk to somebody who's experienced that recently, my friend Doug here did his first acquisition across 3 different terminals, and he's been extraordinarily successful with it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So the 3 vendors you said for safety, one was Line Haul Central. I'm familiar with them, and there were 2 others that you mentioned.
Yeah. So if you talk to Tim Groff over at My Ground First, they're the guys walking around in the purple stuff. He's partnered with a company called Synergy Solutions. They're a safety provider. And then Smith Systems is a subsidiary of J.J. Keller, which is a very large vendor in the DOT space, more so for hire carriers or over-the-road carriers. They don't do a whole lot with FedEx, but they operate a safety training program or a driver safety program called Smith Systems. Just as a plug for J.J. Keller, and they're not here, but for 2290s, they have a very simplified process to do your 2290s. 2290s is an annual requirement for us to pay our heavyweight tax. It's about $2,000 per truck. No, sorry, it's about $550 per truck that you have to do on an annual basis. It actually occurs every July, so it's not on a calendar year. It's on a weird year process, and you generally have to submit it to FedEx every single time you register a new vehicle with them. FedEx does give you about a 2-month grace period to report all your 2290s. So even though we're technically required to do it in July, they will usually accept them even in August. I typically file mine the first week of August. And then every single time you buy another truck or you buy another business, then you're going to have to do 2290s. Now, if you sell a truck and you replace it, you can actually get a credit for that $550 that you spent at the start of the year. So make sure that you capture that tax credit. And then your filing fee is generally like $45 if you transfer the heavyweight tax from the old vehicle to the new vehicle.